welcome to another edition of T Watches a Scary Movie. I am T, and of course, we are talking scary movies. I appreciate you tuning in for our second episode this week. This is our second of two new episodes. We had an episode out this week where we talked Jaws the Revenge, Jack Frost, and Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. And as promised, this is our Christmas Eve episode. So, first of all, Merry Christmas to everybody, or Merry Christmas Eve. Happy holidays. I appreciate y'all tuning in. And I just want to take a second out and again give y'all some love because I've been running this show for a few months now at this point, and I've managed to keep up with the week to week of it. And y'all keep tuning in, you keep engaging, whether it's on the YouTube videos or in the Facebook group. And I really appreciate it. I know that this year has been absolute fucking bonkers. And I just wanted to do this to give myself an outlet to where I wasn't going crazy. And if it's done good things for any of y'all, then it's all absolutely been worth it. So thank you so much for tuning in week after week and checking these episodes out. Thank you for participating in things like our watch parties and everything as well too. And let's hope that next year we have something even bigger. But I'll hit all the usual stuff. If you want to make sure that you're being made aware of when new episodes or other videos I'm putting up are being posted, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube link right here. This is the link for the group, or excuse me, not for the group, for the my YouTube page. So this will alert you anytime I'm uploading something new. You get a chance to check it out. And also make sure that you subscribe to the Facebook group for T Watches a Scary Movie. That's right here. If you subscribe to that specific link, then you'll get alerted for our watch parties, written reviews, things like that. You'll see some other fun that we are definitely going to have. Now, we don't have too much here for this episode before we get to our interview with David Steiman. Like I said, I had a chance to sit down with the writer and director of Santa Sleigh, which we talked about earlier this month. Great fun horror film. You get to see former WWE superstar, I guess current, because he still wrestles every now and then, but you get to see former WWE, WCW superstar Bill Goldberg starring as Santa Claus, who's going around murdering a bunch of people. It is so much fun. It is free on Peacock, so if you have not had a chance to check it out, please make sure to do so. Again, Peacock is free, so there's no reason not to watch this. But yeah, we're going to get to that interview with David Steiman here in just a second. And after that, we're going to go ahead and get to our review of Anna and the Apocalypse, the last of our holiday horror series. Now, starting next week, we'll get back to talking some movies, but like I mentioned, we're going to also get some other episodes where we talk about different topics. So we're going to talk about music's involvement with horror films, talk about like all the hair metal stuff like in the 70s and the synthesizer tracks of the 80s, the alt rock of the 90s, and then obviously the pop punk stuff that we're getting in 2000s, and how that involvement with horror movies just continues to go year after year after year. So we're going to talk about that. We got some other great topics coming up for y'all as well too. But again, the only way to know about it is if you subscribe, so you can make sure you're here every time we have a new episode going up. So with that, let's not waste any more time. Like I said, I got to sit down recently with David Steiman. Terrific human being. We had a lot of fun actually getting to talk not just about his movie Santa Sleigh, but also about some of his experiences in Hollywood. We had to talk a little bit about some of the other films he's worked on as well too, and just about his thoughts in general on horror. So enjoy, check it out, and again, Santa Sleigh is available on Peacock for free right now. I have joining us today here on T Watches a Scary Movie, special guest. He actually directed and wrote the movie we just talked about this week, Santa Sleigh. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. David Steiman. David, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. It's fun to be on.
Yes, sir. I was actually just saying to you before that we had just watched the episode, and I had been kind of delaying watching the movie because I wasn't going to do it till next week. And I was on another show, and they were talking about, man, somebody should really just try to interview the guy. And I said that was going to be me, and I reached out, and you were very cool and quick to get back to me and say, let's do it. So really, really, really appreciate you being part of the show today.
Man, how am I going to deny somebody with such a cool Friday the 13th sweater like
that? Man, this year has been the year of purchases, and I found a good site that had my kind of Christmas sweater, and I was like, you know what? I have to do it. They're a little bit more expensive than I would probably have liked, but man, so worth it though.
I love it.
Oh man. You know, what's interesting actually, I found about your movie was that at the time that it came out, I was working at like Circuit City and then I worked over at Blockbuster. And I saw your movie on the shelf like all the time between those jobs. And I was like, okay, clearly this thing has been like selling and like we're getting rentals on it and stuff like that. I loved wrestling, you know, I still enjoy wrestling a lot, but I loved wrestling too. It's like there are all the elements of something here I should see, but I was such a snob back then. I was like, I'm only going to watch refined movies and, you know, movies that scream like Academy Award winners and stuff like that. So I missed out. And I said the first thing in my review was, I screwed up because I had so much fun watching this movie. You know, we've been doing this series on holiday horror, and I talked about how one of the things I look for in a, you know, Christmas scary movie is that, you know, we're probably not going to get something too serious. So I really have to like enjoy watching the film itself. And you made a really, really fun movie, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I know I think if people go in and they're expecting, you know, like a straight up horror film, they're often disappointed. But if they go in, you know, I kind of feel like that the first scene kind of sets the tone, and if you're okay with that, you know, then you'll have fun. But if you're, you know, if you're expecting a lot of scares and, you know, just a lot of creep, you know, I apologize in advance.
And like I said, what's cool is that like not only did you direct the film, but you wrote it as well too. Where'd the idea come from? Because I mean, you know, it's Santa killing people, but there is some nuance to it. So where'd the idea come from for Santa's sleigh?
So it's kind of a strange inspiration, and bear with me. I'll take you on the journey.
Get it.
So I was working on Rush Hour 2,
Okay.
and we were filming this fight scene in a Hong Kong harbor. And I was on a boat, and there was nowhere to go because you're just self-contained. And even during the downtime, but you know, boats are so small that you just don't have a lot of room to kind
Nowhere
of,
to go.
you know,
Yeah.
go around, right? And so I didn't want to be in anybody's way and just do what I was doing. But also, we were filming in the middle of the night. There was nothing you could do, no phone calls to be made. Email was not happening then. Like it was just a different time.
Sure.
And so I had an idea, but I was watching Jackie Chan block out a fight sequence. And I was thinking, you know, what'd be cool is if it was a villain that had action like this, not just a good guy. And I was really just taken aback by this whole Jackie Chan style of action where he just made use of whatever was around him. It wasn't like he just had a weapon. He was just, you know, whatever environment he was in, you know, yeah, he would make it work in a fun and creative way. And then at the same time, you know, it was like this weird, like caveman epiphany where it was like, wow, if you just reverse these letters in Satan, you get Santa, you know? And so I just merged these two ideas together watching Jackie. And so I had a notebook and I just started to write out a scene, like the first kind of scene. And that was it. That was the dinner scene. And so I wrote that out, and it was like I showed a couple people on the crew, and they were like, "That's funny," you know. And so I kind of had that in my back pocket for a while. And then during breaks in Hong Kong and stuff, I would just, you know, take time and just keep writing it further and further. So the whole script was funny because it was handwritten, the first draft, which was just like in a notebook. Yeah. And so, and it was really just looking around, like I was thinking, you know, Jackie Chan style action. And so I thought, okay, if Santa can do this, just not, you know, where he had a weapon, like, you know, Jason had like a, you know, machete, or, you know, a killer just didn't rely on an axe or something like that.
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, you start thinking about, well, there's a lot of props around that are associated with Christmas and the holidays. And what if it was just that? Right. So that's kind of where I went with. And it was just like, okay, well, can we place him in this scene? Can we place him in this scene? What happens here? And yeah, that's kind of where. So if you notice, I mean, Santa doesn't really have a weapon. I guess he has that lump of coal.
Yeah.
But you know, but everything else he just kind of makes use of in whatever environment he's in.
Yeah. And you touch on a really interesting note as well too, because in horror films we always talk about, like, especially like in later sequels, oh, we go to see like Freddy killing people, we go to see Jason killing people, like we're not there for our protagonists or anything like that. But your film is kind of unique to where, like you said, like you wrote for the villain. It's supposed to be a showcase for the villain, and that's the actual story itself. And I have to ask, because like I said, I am a wrestling fan, what brought you to Goldberg? Because it's looking at the cast you have in the film, and we'll get into that later. Like, you have a really good cast in this movie. What brought you to Goldberg as opposed to anyone else you might have been considering?
Well, as when I was writing it, and then you're dreaming, oh, this would be the perfect person to get. I was more thinking of like a James Gandolfini type. Not that he would ever do one of these projects, but I just figured some big hulking kind of persona, like a John Goodman.
Hmm.
Really, I was thinking like Hagrid,
Okay.
like that, his body type, his, the way he's portrayed. Like, so Robbie, and I'm trying to remember, I can't remember his last name, so I apologize.
That's okay.
But anyway, so just somebody like that. And then I have a good buddy, his name is Josh, and he actually, he's out here, and he trains wrestlers. He is now like this massive fitness guru. And anyway, we were, he was a production assistant when I was a production assistant, and director assistant. And we were coming up through all these film productions together. And, we'd always mess around on any film we were on, and we would talk wrestling, and he would get the whole crew involved in wrestling ideas, and we'd take pictures, like, and give monikers and all this stuff. Anyway, he invited me. He was pretty connected in the whole wrestling world. And
Okay.
so he invited me, like, I want to say, it was like, WWE Raw or something was in town, and he called and he's like, "Hey, you want to go?" And I'm always like, I grew up a huge wrestling fan, but I'm always like, I don't know, like I'm kind of like, it takes me a lot to get out of the house, right?
Gotta get a
And he
push,
goes,
yeah.
he's like, I got backstage access, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, you
Yep.
got backstage access to anything I'm in, it's like like it's because it's just fun, right? So we go, this is in LA, we're at Staples Center, go in the back entrance where all the, the vehicles and loading happen. Very first thing I see, I'm not even kidding, I mean, this is my first peek behind the curtain.
Uh-oh.
I see the Nature Boy Ric Flair getting shaved with a pink disposable Bic razor, and like
Lord.
spray oiled up and getting ready. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Ric Flair, and just like and now you're
He's
seeing the
mortal.
actual circus, right? And you
Yeah.
see mortal enemies, talking and hanging out. They're all looking at the monitor, what's going on in the front of, front. And you're just like, whoa, this is crazy. And just the crazy chaotic energy that's happening behind the scenes. So we're we go, we to kind of take in the whole back scene stuff. We go to the front of the house and we're watching the show live. We've got like these ringside seats.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden Goldberg comes in, and I hear Goldberg, and the audience is going nuts, and they just love him. And I'm like, and I just see him, and I'm like, I think that's Santa. Like, I just looking at him, and I know it's a stretch, but I'm like, man, to have somebody that's not traditionally like, obese and heavy set, and just
Yeah, the
to have
old
somebody
wrestlers.
that's, yeah, just have somebody that's just jacked and can do like crazy moves. And I'm just looking at him, I'm like, with the right amount of, makeup and hair, this could work. And just seeing the passion of the fans that were there. And then part of me was like, well, this would be funny as heck because he's Jewish. So anyway, we go behind, after the match, and I go, and my friend Josh knows Goldberg, and he introduces me, and I'm like, and then Goldberg's like, hey, why don't you come out to dinner with us? Across the street, we go to a restaurant. And it was funny because they joined us for that meal was, and I apologize again because I can't remember anybody's name right now, but it was Mr. Belding,
Oh yeah.
from from Saved by the Bell,
Right, right.
and uh, David Arquette,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And so here I am, like, we're just sitting down having a meal, just talking wrestling and stuff. And so I hated to be this guy, but I'm like, Bill, I think I have a movie for you. I have a part for you in this. And I pitched him, and he's like, wait a minute, you mean I get to play Santa Claus? and kill people, I'm in. That was it. And so leading up to that, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with Roger Corman.
Yeah.
So Roger Corman, he kind of was the catalyst behind this film getting made.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a meeting. He loved the title, and he said, the way I would make a movie back in the day, I'd come up with a title, you know, I'd workshop it with my friends to see what they thought, and the next step I would take is I would make a poster, and if the poster got any traction, I'd make it. And he goes, that was my test marketing. And so so we mocked up a poster and of Santa Sleigh, and Goldberg he had a part, I want to say on Spider-Man 2, I think it was at the time, you know, where he was just like I think he had like a you know, like a day player role. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm trying to think if I think Josh was on Sony or my friend Rick was on Sony. Anyway, they got me on the lot, and I presented him with the poster, and he's like, let's do this. That's it. Sign me up. We're in. So that's how Goldberg got on board. And, you know, and it was just it was so fun to work with him. And, you know, he brought a lot of ideas to himself, and he just really embraced the role. And look, it was corny, but he made it work, you know?
He definitely did. So, and I'm curious because, you know, in addition to Goldberg, you had other really good names in this as well. You know, you had Emily DeRaven, you had James Caan, Fran Drescher, you had a lot of people in there. And for the kind of movie it is, to where it's Christmas horror, those are some really good names to have in this film, honestly. And I have to ask, was there anybody that was just on the mega ultra like super, if I could have them list at first, that you're like, I'm just going to try for the moon and grab them, because these are really good names that you have in your movie? Was there anybody that you didn't get that you wanted?
Yeah, in fact, we went around in circles for a while, and it all didn't really come together until the very last minute. But you know, it was just favors of people that worked on films, people that producers knew. But I knew I wanted that very first scene to have cameos, because I felt like if we got rid of anybody that you knew first, then you didn't know where this film was going to go, and that would grab your attention, right?
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, like after that, where do you go, right? But at least it starts out with a bang, because that's what the film started out with, was just this very first scene. And I just thought, man, if we could, you know, kill people that everybody was like, oh, they're not going to kill them. So, yeah, we did have actors. In fact, there was like, for a while, you know, Val Kilmer was in. We had talked, you know, we were Robert Downey Jr. at the time, and granted, he wasn't Iron Man at the time and all that stuff, right? Yeah. So, Woody Harrelson. I believe I tried to work on Edward Norton for a minute. Wow. Because, you know, I worked on a film with him. Yeah. I don't know if he ever really officially was into it, but, you know, we were just, it was a lot of people, and it was just like, we thought we had like Val Kilmer, and then he had to back out. And it was just like this whole kind of thing. And then it kind of just all fell into place right at the very end. The person that I went to first, just because, like, you know, she was one of the first people that I had really met, was Rebecca Gayheart. Okay. And so it was just like, you got to do this. You know, I just wanted her at the table no matter what. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So you had ones on there, and I mean, again, you still came out on top, it seems, because again, there's some really awesome people in the film.
We got spoiled for sure. I mean, just the idea, even just to think about who was sitting around the table, like to put, you know, James Caan, which is just nuts. Like the stuff that we put him through, and you're thinking, oh man, this is Sonny Corleone, right? Or just, or even, you know, in Misery and that, and then Fran Drescher, who is one of the nicest people ever, and just so game for really anything, and just so pleasant. And then Chris Kattan, and I just felt like, man, you know, there was so many things that, you know, you wish that you could have gone further with, because they all brought so much, you know, to the table, but you just had a very limited amount of time, and you had to shoot it, and it was tough because action, you know, was happening. And I'll tell you a very crazy thing that happened in that scene that, you know, a lot of people aren't familiar with. But if you look at that opening scene very, very slowly, that's not Goldberg that's in there.
Oh.
And so this was, I mean, we had a ton of challenges, you know, making it. I mean, look, first time director, so that always has its hiccups. They tell you, there's a couple rules that they always have when you're making a film, like don't work with animals, don't work with water, don't work with children, and because those are all will just, suck the time out of production, especially if it's a small film. And we had all of that, right? I mean, not water, but it was frozen water. So I mean, I don't know if that counts, but and so we had all that. But the biggest challenge was that the day before we were supposed to film this big scene, like the scene, Goldberg had an infection, and his hand had swollen up, and he had to go, to the hospital, and he was just unavailable. But you couldn't stop it at this point, and so we had to find somebody that could double as him, right? And that's impossible because there's not a lot of people walking around that have Goldberg's build that you can just call up.
Yeah.
And so, we got like the biggest stunt guy that we could find. And so we shot like very carefully about how we did it. And then we had to go back later and insert Goldberg into that scene. So it was super challenging to figure out, but it was also like really intimidating then, like, to finally work with all these big actors and not really have all your stuff dialed in and on point, because you had to kind of make it up on the fly because you didn't have him. So you're like, how do I work around this? It would have been challenging enough, but it came together nicely in the end.
I was going to say, because you definitely can't notice. So it definitely seems like you were up for the task to get it all done. So, and I'm curious.
If you watch,
oh, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, if you watch in slow-mo, you'll start seeing like,
I'm gonna have to go back and check it now too. I am curious because the movie itself, it's a really gory heavy movie. There's some awesome kills in it and everything too. And the early 2000s, 20 years ago, was all about that. Like the kind of horror films we had out at that time were getting higher on the gore, and that was kind of the attraction to them versus anything else. Do you have any memories, I guess, of what might have influenced you at the time? Because you've talked about, where the idea of obviously the story came from, but into the horror aspects of it when you were making it, was anything kind of speaking to you at the time, or what was like weighing on you as you were kind of making the film when it came to the horror parts of it now?
So I'd say, like, when I was thinking about influences, it was horror, but always horror camp. So, and you take a joke as far as you can kind of go. So the two things that always kind of, I play upon is Gremlins. I always think of just like that was the feeling that I kind of wanted to create, like this, kind of small town. And it was funny because I rewatched Gremlins with my son a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't watched it in forever. And I'm like, man, I can see, why I thought of this or where I went with this. And then I would say Army of Darkness. Like I'm always, into the whole Sam Raimi, world. And Army of Darkness always has kind of the Ash character with his one-liners and silliness, but yet there was a lot of gore. And, I would say those two, films like come to mind right away. I'm trying to think of it. I guess you're influenced by everything, really. You take in whatever you see, and I'm hard pressed right now to not think about Friday the 13th as I stare at your sweater.
Yeah.
But again, I think, I was thinking is one of the things that works about, Friday the 13th or Halloween or any of those is that you never see their face, and that makes them, scarier. And I knew that we wouldn't really have that because right away you're going to have to see Santa's face.
Yeah.
And so it's harder when you don't have like some kind of facade or some expressionless thing to hide behind. And that to me was like, that was a challenge that you'd always have to wrestle with. Yeah. Pun not intended, but intended. Sorry.
Hey, no, and with that as well too, one of the other things you did in this movie, which like blew me away, was what I call the Rankin and Bass scene, where it's the backstory to Santa and the curse, the 1,000 years. And it's very reminiscent of, Santa Claus coming to town and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I have to ask, was that always intended to kind of seem like that? Were there other animations you were thinking about doing with it? Or was it always right, like we're doing the Rankin and Bass scene,
That was written as Rankin and Bass
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my favorite holiday traditions as a kid. I love that. I've as soon as that came out on DVD, I had it. That's the one thing I didn't want to miss. When I was a kid on TV, on network TV, whenever it came on.
Yeah.
Like I always loved that, and I thought you have to have exposition of the story, so this is the best way to tell it. And I thought it's fun. It lends itself to the holiday, and that's exactly, I wanted that from the get-go. And it was hard to find that because we did it in stop motion.
Mhm.
I mean, it's so difficult to find people that can do that. I mean, just the way that the sets are constructed,
Sure.
the little armatures, the characters, and the patience and everything that goes along with it. And so we kind of had two simultaneous shoots going on. We had our physical production, and we had the stop motion animation shoot. And so check in with the stop motion animation, make sure that we're on the right path and all that. But what we found was, and this is, again, you can go back and you can see it, is we had a camera jitter, which is just doom when you're doing stop motion.
Yeah.
And you can see it. And so when Santa gets really angry in it and he's like shaking in the camera, well, it was a happy accident. We had to reshoot it. So because and you don't find that out until you're doing the dailies, but dailies don't come when you're doing stop motion that fast, because you have to keep everything locked off. So and we weren't doing things digital. This is the pre-digital revolution. So it was another one of those things that you're like,
yeah.
But it worked out.
That's so awesome to hear, because when I was talking the movie with the boys from the wrestling show that I was on, I was like, yeah, like the Rankin and Bass scene, and they're like, what? I was like, guys, come on, like, you didn't watch any of those old specials back in the day?
Come on, guys, Yuko and Cornelius.
And Hermie. So good.
By the way, that should be a wrestler. They should just bring out Yukon Cornelius for like just a holiday special. And
What's funny is that you mentioned something like that. AEW, actually, a company that works with TNT, they recently did something with like a Christmas Story, where I guess they had a bunch of their wrestlers act out like a bunch of scenes from a Christmas Story. I was like, that's funny, because in about a week we're going to see it for 24 hours as it is. Oh man. All right, so I only got a couple more questions for you. I am curious about the curling scene. The curling was very vital to this bet, and then again at the end of the movie itself. So I gotta ask, is curling something you grew up with? Is it an Olympic fascination? Where did that come from?
I mean, I think, look, if you're Canadian, it's ingrained in you, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're not, it's kind of like a strange, like silly curiosity, like, what? This is a sport, and it's people play this, and and that something so big would be settled like this. And I thought this would be a fun element to do. I grew up in Detroit, and growing up in Detroit, we get all the Detroit channels, but we also get all the Canadian broadcast channels, because we're right across the river from Windsor. And so I grew up, and curling would be on, TV just as much as ice hockey would be. And I thought this would be crazy, kind of silly. It would fit with the vibe of the film. Like, of course, it's something ridiculous. And it was fun to do in the stop motion, and actually, when we shot the live sequences. And look, we shot in Canada, so the crew was totally familiar with it, and they actually had a lot of knowledge that I didn't. So we lucked out again.
Yeah. Were there any on-set curling games while y'all were making the film or anything like that?
No. I wish, if we had the time, I would have loved to do it. It was just like rush. Yeah. But yeah, next time we're curling.
All right. Okay. So I have a quick fire set of 5 questions for you that's going to kind of ask either or. First thing that comes to mind, and maybe give a little bit of an explanation on it. All right. And we're going to stick with the Christmas horror theme here. So it's going to be all about Christmas horror movies. So Gremlins or Gremlins 2?
Gremlins.
Okay.
Gremlins. I love it.
I have to ask, have you seen Gremlins 2?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the better question is then from that, Do you enjoy it? Because I actually find that people with Gremlins 2, it's either a hard nope, it's just not good, or it's like, look, there's a very redeemable qualities about it. So where do you stand on that with it?
Actually, well, I have a different memory from Gremlins 2. I went to see it with a girl that I was interested in, and we had a great time.
Right, I get you with it. Okay.
We ended up making out. So I actually had a very positive experience about Gremlins 2, and despite that, I'm still defaulting to Gremlins because I mean, you had a dream team of Chris Columbus, Joe Dante. I mean, this is
Goldberg, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So good.
And you know what I love too is like just the kind of things that you don't notice, but you notice now. It's like, wait a minute, that town square is from Back to the Future.
Yes.
It's just like
yes.
All those like kind of little things. And I'm a VW nerd now. And so the fact that there's like a bug and all the other little references in there, and Gizmo's so cute.
He is. Yeah. All right. If you've seen them, the original
and sorry.
Here we go.
Thinking about Gremlins 2, right? And this is one of those subtle influences that you don't think about.
Uh-huh.
The father, crazy inventor, right?
Yes. Right into it. You are absolutely right. Yeah. Although we could say that the grandfather inventor is a little bit more successful than Mr. Peltzer was in Gremlins. I kept saying I expected a payoff. If I had one complaint about Gremlins, is like we never got a payoff with Mr. Peltzer designing something that actually worked. And I was like, dang it, that would have been heartwarming that it's Christmas. I finally sold the one, and it never happened.
You're right. But the smokeless ashtray did connect that gas station guy.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Yeah,
that's a good call. All right, next one. If you've seen them, the original Black Christmas, the 2006 version, or last year's version.
Well, again, and this plays upon nostalgia, whatever. I'll go with the original, and that only because I met the director of the original, and we had a lot of just fun stories to pass along. So that gets ingrained and colors my experience.
Okay.
So I would go with the original, but only because of that kind of connection. So
that's a good reason. I'd say. All right. Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 1 or Part 2? I had a tough time because I enjoyed. Is it Jimmy in the first one or Jimmy's the second one?
I think Jimmy's first. I mean, and excuse me because it's been forever, and probably I haven't watched them since probably prior to Santa's Sleigh because I'm like, I'm gonna watch everything, right?
Sure.
So I want to say the first one.
Okay.
But seeing that, it was kind of like you started to see, okay, these are the things that I want to do differently.
You want to stay away from.
I get it. But I'll go one, and and I'll just go with because it was the original.
Okay, that's fair. Man. That's always a good reason with horror, though. That always works. All right.
I'm trying to think when that didn't really work for me though. I'll tell you when. Well, no.
Uh-oh.
I would say, no. I'm trying to think. Friday the 13th. I think my favorite one was actually Part 3, and that's only because that was the first horror movie I really saw and I snuck into, and that really damaged me for a while.
I don't expect that. It's because there's always it seems with horror that if your first one that you see is your favorite, if it's not bad, there's a problem with it because it's like you didn't watch the good stuff until much later. You started watching the really cheesy stuff, and that's how horror should work now. All right, last couple. Is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween movie or is it a Christmas movie?
I just feel like it's Halloween, but. Yeah. In fact, I'm sometimes confused, and even when I refer to it, I'm thinking Halloween.
Yeah.
But
okay.
It straddles both, and that maybe is the beauty of it because you can work for both holidays. And I'm sure Tim Burton, it works. He probably gets residuals for both holidays when that's on.
He gets so much from it. I believe it. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
All right. And our last one, if you had to pick one scary baddie, you know, it could be a monster or a man that you don't want coming down your chimney during the holiday season, who or what would that be?
Boy, I bet there's a really clever answer here. Let's see. A real holiday baddie. Oh gosh, let's see.
And they don't have to be Christmas related. You know, if you want to say it's, you know, a spider from Arachnophobia or it's Jason or anything like that's fine. Who do you not want to see coming down the chimney?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know why, but zombies always scare me. So
Okay.
I would say, you know, but good luck getting on the chimney. If they're getting in, they're really just falling down, right?
At that point, they're gonna break up, right?
Yeah. Hopefully, I'd have the fire on.
There you go.
Think. Boy, that's a good question. I mean, I wish I'd give you a really good answer, and that makes me upset that I can't. That nothing's coming to the.
Hey, zombies work.
mind.
The question though, is it like, not that it would matter, they're still in the chimney. Are we talking the old Romero, like slow lumbering ones? Are we talking the new age fast ones that can run? Which ones are we thinking?
So Romero ones are that was the first horror that really, really flipped me out. But, you know, Danny Boyle's scare me even more.
Later,
so if it's a 28 day later one, that's scarier to me now. Because yeah, especially because they can run faster than you. It's and
gotta keep that cardio now.
Yeah. A lot of requirements there. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Some quick fire ones for you. All right, our last question, David. Santa welches out of that second bet that he has in the curling. You know, they bet again to stop the reign of terror. He ends up trying to screw him over, and ultimately, Christmas passes. That's it. We're left to kind of believe that Santa might actually do this again next Christmas because there's nothing stopping him from going back and holding off on that. So I give you an option here. I either need the idea for the most outlandish sequel that you could imagine you could make for Santa's sleigh, or the real idea for a sequel that you might have considered at some point, and you don't have to tell us which is which. So whatever the idea is, it's either something outlandish that you just want to make up, or it's the real deal, and we're not going to confirm which of them it is.
Well, I'll just tell you this. I was texting Goldberg last week, and we were just kicking around some ideas. And, you know, I'll just throw out, you know, two things. Elves on shelves, right?
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen those Boston Dynamic robots.
Yes.
Which are scarier than all hell to me. Like just that. Mm-hmm. Those would make some scary hell deer.
Okay.
So, you know.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And like we said, folks, we are not going to confirm whether that is just an outlandish idea or whether it's the actual sequel. Only time's going to tell. But
time and financing.
That's right. That is right. Always a big part. David, this has been an absolute pleasure, though. Thank you so much for joining us and talking a little bit about your wonderful Christmas horror film and other scary things with that. We hope to have you back at some time again now.
Thanks so much. I had a blast. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much again, David, for joining us to talk a little bit about Santa's sleigh and a few other things. It was a phenomenal time getting to hang out and just chat with you. And we're definitely going to look to have David back sometime in the future. Got some fun stuff here over the next year for y'all to check out. But now to our final part, we're going to talk about Anna and the Apocalypse, the last of our holiday horror series. So I remember hearing about this film because Mile High Horror Film Festival, which is a local film festival, that's hence the name, about horror, I got to work for them for a year. And I remember ever since I started working for them that they do a lot of screenings as well. So anything kind of fun and new coming out that was horror related, they usually got a bunch of passes for and like gave them away to people. And I remember them doing one for Anna and the Apocalypse, but I didn't check it out because I hadn't seen any previews or heard anything about it at all prior to the release. And I actually recently found out that it was even a zombie movie, and one that's set during Christmas, and it's a musical. So all these things, didn't know anything about it because the poster doesn't exactly let you know that. Like, yeah, there's the big candy cane that Anna's holding and everything, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything at all. But the story of Anna and the Apocalypse, off the name, is the story of Anna. As she comes closer and closer to finishing up school, she's not exactly sure what she wants out of her life. Her father wants her to go to university, like a lot of parents do, but Anna just isn't so sure about that. Unfortunately, she'll have to contend with unrequited crushes, mean teachers, a stern father, and a zombie outbreak. Let me establish that while this is an absolutely charming story, and it is, I found this movie to be incredibly charming. If you're not finding yourself enjoying the first couple of songs in it, because as I mentioned, it is a musical, if you're not finding yourself enjoying those, like the first couple of songs, then you likely should turn it off. The music is absolutely the selling point of this movie. And if you're not really digging the music, you're not really going to dig the movie as a whole. It's just not going to do it for you. So keep that in mind. If you're not liking those first couple of songs, it's probably best just to turn it off because you're not really going to get anywhere better with it. Those of y'all who know me might think I'm biased towards this movie just because if you do know me, you know I did musical theater all throughout high school and a little bit of college that I did. Uh, but you should also know that I'm extremely critical of movie musicals. I'm very, very harsh on them just because I got to do a number of them again throughout school. But even after that, like I listened to a lot of musical soundtracks like growing up and everything. So I'm pretty harsh like when they release movie musicals and things like that. And honestly, I don't know. Like, writing a new musical is unquestionably risky. There's a reason why studios like Disney will use the same composers and lyricists over and over and over, just because it's one of those cases where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They don't like to go to a lot of new things because there's a lot of risk as opposed to a lot of reward coming back. And occasionally you might get a good gem out of that. Like, for example, The Greatest Showman. Wasn't an existing musical. It's a story that a lot of people might have known about when it came to P.T. Barnum and everything, but everything was written from the ground up. And honestly, I feel you'd have a hard time finding somebody who actually watched it that didn't enjoy it, because it is a very enjoyable movie. But that's rare that happens. That we can get a brand new movie musical. It's never been adapted before or anything, and it turns out to be good. And I definitely think that Anna and the Apocalypse actually pulled that off with being a brand new musical. All the songs are fun and upbeat, and and while that's great, one of the things that makes it stand out are the feelings that the songs generate. I found myself wanting to tap my feet, clap my hands, nod along every time a new song came on. And I found myself actually trying to sing along to a couple songs, even though I had no idea what the words were, which is like the most embarrassing thing because how you gonna sing along to a word you don't know? It's not like it's Michael Jackson and you're just like, smooth criminal, and okay, and no, you can't do that. You can't do that with musicals because you have no idea what they're supposed to sound like. But yet, and still, I was loving the song so much that I kept trying to sing with it stupidly. Um, I don't know though. I mean, like I said, if you don't like the first couple of songs, you're not gonna like the movie, so you have to keep that in mind as well too. And then when you start thinking about like the zombie element in the movie, because like I said, it is a zombie film as well. They don't actually play a prevalent role until what seems like closer to the last like 30 minutes of the movie. They're there. They're absolutely there pretty early on. But even though it's played for jokes, they're treated like background characters for a good chunk as well too. They're not treated actually like this is something that's actually affecting our lives until we get towards the second half of the movie. And most zombie movies that we get, usually it's like a 15 to 20 minute setup before things start happening, okay? Some can go really quicker, but usually anything longer than that, your movie is not going to turn out too well because we don't want a long setup. Zombies are the same no matter what. They bite you, you become a zombie, they have a craving for human flesh. To kill them, gotta hit them right in the head, hit that brain right there, you know? So I was actually legitimately starting to question whether the horror elements were going to play this big role, because they kind of saved the zombies from actually being even scary until quite late in the film. But what was interesting is that once they did dive into it, there were a lot of the film's better jokes that were coming out of it. Matter of fact, one of the earlier songs in the movie is about two characters who had just spent the night together, and now they're out trying to figure out, like, trying to get caught up with their friends and family and stuff like that, and they're oblivious to all the zombies that are around them. It's fun, it's funny, because it's kind of like Shaun of the Dead, to where Sean doesn't notice anything at all right when he's leaving the store, and like all this death and mayhem is kind of around him, and it takes him a bit to figure it out. The lead character Anna, who is played by Ella Hunt, she has a lot of screen presence in this movie. We've all seen at least one or two films where it's a storyline of a kid who doesn't know what they want to do after school. But one thing that a lot of people don't talk about as recently as movies in the '90s with these kind of stories is that there weren't exactly overflowing possibilities of what you can do. Like prior to the new millennium itself, like whenever they did the whole storyline of, well, I'm not going to college, usually they had to write something pretty big for the movie because you didn't have the same opportunities that we do now. But now that we're in this big era of like a digital age and everything, we're finding out it's entirely possible to be successful without much effort at all. You don't have to take a path that people are leaving out for you. So that was probably one element of the story that, while it's not bad, it was kind of weak because, again, we're in the new millennium, okay? This movie came out just a few years ago. It's not like Anna would be screwed if she didn't go to college. Her dad's just kind of old school and old fashioned, and that's what's affecting it from being entirely believable, honestly. But even then, like, Ella Hunt plays the role so well. Anna is extremely likable, and usually these kind of roles, when they play up some kind of subplot with like romantic interest, ends up just being completely like cheesy and it's dumb. You don't want to watch it, and it was actually very, very fun to watch that. It was a very natural relationship she had with her friends, and the two love interests that she have in the movie. When it comes to the gore, and as the usual, what you would expect in a zombie film, like the zombies are killed multiple crazy, zany ways. People are killed the same ways they always are. And it's like every zombie movie has that one shot, every single one, to where zombie bites somebody and they're ripping like their flesh and the skin away from them. That's in this film too, so you don't really get away from that at all. And there's actually a really cool death in there to where a zombie is killed by a seesaw as well. Don't want to spoil it, but it's one of the cooler deaths in the film. But you know what you're getting into. This is not an overly gore fest heavy movie like a lot of other ones out there, but I definitely wouldn't show it to the youngins at all. That's probably not appropriate. As for the Christmas connection, though, it's heavily featured. It's set before Christmas itself. There's a lot of decorations up around the town and everything too. They're doing a Christmas talent show throughout the film, but it's not the driving force of anything in the movie itself, honestly. I mean, there's not really any big plot points to where it's like, oh, the zombies are here because of Christmas, or they're getting revenge because of something that happened on Christmas, or if the characters make it to Christmas, this ends. Like, there's nothing like that at all. So that's the only downside if we're talking Christmas connections, that Christmas is... I got so scared just now. I'm still scared. Christmas is very prevalent in the story itself. It's just not like anything that's pushing the plot along anywhere. It doesn't really add anything to the story. So, I don't know. I mean, it's fun, but I could see myself watching this outside of Christmas time, just because, again, there's nothing that actually makes it 100% like it has to be watched. Like, I could see watching this like in January, or watching it even in February too, when it's still colder out, because it seems like more of a cold movie than it does a Christmas movie. I will also say that the music in this was so good that I actually am quite surprised nobody's tried to adapt this for the stage yet. Like, I'm sure, just like anything, folks probably have tried it like in a small production somewhere in, bumfuck Egypt. But like, this is like the kind of story that would play perfectly for High School Musicals, like for them to adapt it to it. Just take all the extra, F-bombs and everything out. You'll be perfectly fine. But It is a fun movie. It's a good movie. The musical aspect is going to stand out to a lot of you because some of you aren't big diehard horror fans. You're just looking for something fun, really. Like when you get in, that's not going to be like a big commitment. This is that movie. You'd enjoy this one a lot. Anna and the Apocalypse. It is free on Prime Video right now. Check it out for sure. And that's going to do it for us, folks. We had a great time again talking with David Steiman, the director and writer of Santa's Slay. We got to talk a little bit about Anna and the Apocalypse. It is Christmas Eve. I hope you and your loved ones are safe and that everybody is ready to get back to a normal Christmas, hopefully next year. I know 2020 has sucked, folks, but we are almost done. Now, we are going to have an episode next week as well, too. I haven't really decided what we're talking about yet, but we'll get that up sooner than later. And then we're going to have some fun once we head into the new year, folks. So, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Y'all have a great Christmas, a happy holidays. Stay safe, stay warm, and stay scared. I'm T. We've been talking scary movies. See you guys.